The security guard's breath fogged in the bitter wind as he locked the gate behind me. His badge read James. His eyes said, "Don't make this harder than it has to be." I didn't. Just stood there, outside the Richard building I had built, watching my reflection dissolve in the polished glass. That was 5 weeks ago. But the real story starts in a different kind of silence, 9 years back. A blown fuse. A microwave coughing sparks in a moldy apartment above an abandoned pawn shop in East Oakland. Midnight. Leftover pad thai. Me, debugging line 872 of a sentiment analysis prototype while my brain thrummed like broken neon. That night, the walls were so thin, I could hear the neighbor sobbing through drywall. Someone shouting about a vape cartridge. The air tasted like roaches and burned soy sauce. And then it worked. The model worked. I didn't cry. Didn't scream. Just stood barefoot in that flickering blue light, staring at the output like it was a goddamn prophecy. It felt like I had hacked the laws of reality. Like I'd cheated gravity and gotten away with it. That moment? That was the last time anything felt simple. 18 months later, that apartment turned into a fire code violation with business cards. We didn't sleep, we didn't shower, but we built fast. People called us scrappy. What they meant was, desperate enough to matter. Then the suits came. Polished loafers. Smiles like contracts. "We love your vision," they said. "We just want to help you scale." I was too tired to read between the lines. I was also too smart not to protect myself. I sold the company for $1. Yes, really. $1. In return, I got equity, board influence, and a clause buried so deep in the contract, it was practically a curse. If I were ever fired without cause, I could buy it back, for the Richard amount. $1. I remember Michael, my lawyer, pausing, blinking at that paragraph. "You really think they'll overlook this?" I just smiled. "They won't even see it." And they didn't. Not John, the MBA chiseled CFO who measured success in bar graphs. Not Mary, the self-declared VP of brand resonance, who once said our pitch deck needed more femininity in the font. Not the board, who only cared that our algorithm had once helped a Fortune 100 company avoid a PR bloodbath by 72 hours. The ink dried. I stayed on. Chief Strategy Officer. The fancy title for founder in exile. At first, it was bearable. John buried himself in Excel hell. Mary collected speaking gigs and LinkedIn clout. I kept my head down and built. But the rot set in fast. Engineering sinks were replaced by pastel-painted mindfulness corners. Feedback loops got run through tone filters until real critique sounded like motivational posters. John started talking in buzzword haikus: synergy, scale, alignment. Mary began introducing me as our founding soul, which was exec speak for he doesn't matter anymore, but let's pretend he does. I smiled through it. Nodded. But every nod was a tally mark. And then came that night, 2:04 a.m. The office was empty. Just me. The hum of servers. A bottle of bourbon whispering bad decisions. I opened the old folder. The real one. Clause 14C. Still there, still valid. Still binding. My name. My terms. My dollar. I called Michael. He picked up on the first ring. No greeting. Just. Start prepping. He didn't need to ask why. He already knew. Patricia didn't go quietly. She was still there one morning, covered in cryptic equations and smudged stick figures with fangs, and gone by lunch. Hauled out like trash, her frame rattling against the freight elevator walls. No memo. No warning. Just the scent of citrus cleaner and erasure. She wasn't aligned with the energy we're manifesting, Mary said, waving a clipboard like a priest with a prayer book. We're refreshing the workspace narrative. Making it breathable. Patricia wasn't a whiteboard. She was memory. Scar tissue. She'd held the blueprints of our first architecture, the mock-ups we'd pitched in a broom closet to angel investors who smelled like vodka and fear. She carried our jokes, our frustrations, our 3 a.m. desperation. They called it clutter. I called it history. That was when I felt it, the first hairline crack in the foundation. Not loud. Just there, like a whisper in the drywall. By the 4th week, the product team meetings had been exiled to marketing. Rebranded as alignment huddles. Engineers weren't invited. UX leads were looped in only for aesthetic affirmation. John called it unified visioning. I called it what it was, creative euthanasia. He sat in those meetings like a cardboard king, nodding sagely at every buzzword tossed out like confetti. Trust vibes. Empathy-forward design. Authenticity at scale. No one mentioned performance. No one said users. Or results. It was all tone and texture and vibes. They were gutting it. Not with blades, but with brunch platitudes. Even our best people started to fade. Jennifer cornered me in the stairwell, out of breath, eyes darting like prey. "They're calling recruiters back," she said. "I've had 3 calls this week. Big names. Real offers. What are you going to do?" I asked. Her voice dropped to a hush. "What's happening? You built this place. You feel it too, right?" I nodded. But I didn't speak. Because naming it made it real, and I wasn't ready. Not yet. The engineering floor, once a frenzy of caffeine, music, and heated debates, now hummed with nothing but HVAC. The post-it mosaics were gone. Desks were museum pieces. Dead things, beautifully arranged. Then came the mascot. Trusty. A beach ball. With a face. And sunglasses. They spent 6 figures launching him on Instagram with a caption that read, "Analytics should feel like sunshine." They cut NLP research to fund that. I nearly put my fist through the nearest monitor. I tried to reason with John. I used words like misalignment, misallocation, brand dilution. He smiled like he was on a brochure for dental insurance. "You're too close to it," he said. "This is emotional, not strategic." Mary added, sipping her oat latte, "We're a rocket ship, not a museum." She was wearing a designer jumpsuit patterned with constellations. I wondered if she'd bought it just for the metaphor. That night, I sat at my kitchen counter. Bourbon. Silence. The weight of the laptop felt different in my hands, heavier somehow. I pulled up the original sale agreement. Open to the page with the clause. Section 14C. Terminated without cause, original consideration amount, 30 days. Still there. Untouched. Binding. Michael hadn't texted in weeks. The next morning, he did. "Still want eyes on their filings?" I sent one emoji back. Thumbs up. I printed the clause again. Folded it with precision. Slipped it into the lining of my laptop bag, not as a plan. As a promise. Something had shifted inside me. A dull murmur in my chest, like footsteps in a locked house. I wasn't just watching anymore. I was waiting. And then came the board meeting. Q2 review. The kind of room where the silence costs money. John sat at the head of the table like he'd been born in a suit. Mary hovered, grinning like a kid on talent show day. I was halfway through a slide on retention drop-offs when John raised a hand. "Let's pivot," he said. "Mary's got something that speaks to where we're going." The lights dimmed. The assistant moved like this was scheduled. Rehearsed. Click. Slide 1. From sentiment to synergy, the next chapter. And there it was. My dashboard. My code. Butchered. Mascotified. Saturated with gradients and emojis and trusty, now surfing. Mary turned to the board, her voice saccharine. "We're deconstructing the data narrative. Customers want ease, not analysis. Think Spotify meets therapy. I didn't speak. Not at first. The silence was choking. Then I laughed. Just once. A short, sharp snap that echoed too loudly in the cold. John's smile vanished. You find this amusing? No, I said, meeting his eyes. I find it surgical. You've lobotomized the product. You killed the thing that made it matter. He opened his mouth. But I was already standing. Already done pretending this wasn't war. They didn't fire me. Not officially. They just started erasing me. One shadow at a time. It began in that frigid, windowless boardroom, where ambition hummed louder than the HVAC. John adjusted his cufflinks. Mary smiled like a wolf wearing lipstick. Her voice was soft, syrupy. We value your passion, she said, as if she were soothing a child before a needle. But it's time to let go of old attachments. We're scaling. You know how fragile legacy thinking can be. She didn't blink when she said legacy. Like I was already dead. I didn't respond. Not to her. Not to the board. But I felt it, something brittle snapping behind my ribs. John turned toward the table like he was performing for a silent jury. We need to ask if her role still serves where we're going. Vision is important, but friction slows velocity. He said friction the way people say tumor. No vote. No motion. No gavel strike. But it was there. A shift in gravity. Everyone in that room felt it, the air suddenly too dense to breathe. I didn't argue. I just shut my laptop. They expected a speech. I gave them silence. That night, I drove through the city like a ghost watching her old life flicker through dirty glass. Streetlights stuttered. Billboards screamed nonsense. The world looked synthetic, overdesigned and underlived. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I simply froze. Inside. Utter stillness. Like the eye of a storm, or the moment before a trapdoor opens. At 2:37 a.m., I texted Michael. Me, if they move, we move. Pull the trigger file. Michael, already done. Envelopes in the safe. Just say when. I poured nothing. Didn't drink. Just stood in the dark, listening to the hum of old power lines outside my apartment. Let them play their game. I'd already rewritten the rules. The following weeks felt like walking through a building mid-demolition. They didn't dismantle the company. They dismembered it, quietly, politely, behind closed doors and muted Zooms. William was the first limb to go. UX lead. Founding team. The one who designed our earliest interface with nothing but Figma and spite. They didn't even let me grab my charger, he told me. Security acted like I was contagious. John called it talent streamlining. Mary sent out a team-wide email with GIFs and the subject line embracing the next horizon. Then product design was cannibalized by marketing. Strategy was folded into brand tempo. Engineers walked. Not with drama, just a quiet, exhausted finality, like soldiers who stopped believing in the war. I watched them go. Didn't stop them. Didn't ask them to stay. I already knew how this story ended. I tried, once, to raise the alarm. Suggested we delay the reorg until the client metrics stabilized. John gave me a look like he was explaining fire to a caveman. We're not optimizing for sentimentality. We're building a post-founder operating rhythm. Every word out of his mouth felt like it had been run through 5 consultants and a blender. Then the Slack channels started vanishing. The dashboards I'd built were locked down. I watched in real time as my fingerprints were wiped off everything I'd touched. I kept showing up. Because predators don't run. They wait. Then, one evening, a knock. Richard stood there. Framed by the door like a ghost from a better timeline. He didn't speak at first. Just nodded like the message was radioactive. "They've finalized it," he said. "You're on the cut list." I studied him. He looked older than I remembered. More tired. But still loyal in a way you can't fake. "They're calling it post-founder stabilization. Wanted on the investor slide before next quarter." I didn't flinch. "Thank you." He nodded once, then walked away like he was leaving a crime scene. That night, I opened the drawer. No bourbon. No rituals. Just the envelope. Inside, a single check. Blue ink. No embellishment. Just a date, a signature, and a line that would unravel them. Pay to the order of, company name. Amount, $1. Memo, Section 14C repurchase, without cause clause. I held it in my hands. It didn't feel like paper. It felt like gravity. I tucked it back into the drawer. Placed it beside an old photo of us huddled around the first server, laughing, broke, sleep-deprived. Wearing 3 layers because we couldn't afford heat. We were ridiculous. We were unstoppable. They think they've won. That I'm out. That I'll vanish with a shrug and a severance agreement. But I don't want their money. I want the house back. And they're going to give it to me, wrapped in their own arrogance. Because they forgot the one thing that matters in war. The quietest weapon is the most lethal. The calendar invite arrived at 3:12 p.m. No subject. Just, update. Thursday for 30. HR suite. Like I wouldn't recognize a digital execution when I saw one. I dressed for the kill, black blazer, clean lines, hair slicked back like a blade. No makeup. No jewelry. No tells. Just the woman who built the machine walking in to watch them try to bury her inside it. The hallway reeked of synthetic citrus and nervous sweat. Someone had panic-sprayed Febreze over corporate rot. Even the lights flickered like they knew what was coming. Inside the room, John and Mary, seated side by side like a PowerPoint wedding. HR rep on the end, Kathy, hands folded over a manila folder like she was trying not to flinch. No water on the table. No warmth. John opened, voice soft, like sedating a dog before the needle. "We've appreciated your leadership. But we believe it's time to transition in a direction that better reflects our current goals." Current goals. Like I was a broken feature toggle. Mary followed with her usual saccharine poison. "This doesn't erase your impact. This is just a new evolution. For everyone." She smiled like someone holding a pillow over a face, whispering, "You mattered once." Kathy slid the folder toward me. Termination paperwork. Severance, insulting. NDA, performative. LinkedIn announcement draft, already written. Preloaded with hashtags I would never use. I flipped through the pages without reading. They watched me like I might combust. Kathy cleared her throat. "We'll need your badge and laptop before you leave the floor." Of course. Execution had a schedule. Security was waiting outside. Silent. Professional. Escorted me like a walking liability. No return to my desk. No goodbyes. Just the click of the elevator button and a long ride down beside a man whose eyes never left the wall. As the doors closed, I caught Mary's reflection in the glass, laughing. Already moving on. Already rewriting history. I didn't flinch. Didn't cry. Didn't breathe W. James. I went home. Made tea. Opened the drawer. The envelope was there. Check. Clause. Trigger. The next morning, Michael didn't ask questions. Just folded the check and the letter into a FedEx envelope and sealed it with fingers steady as stone. "Cover letter?" he asked. "No," I said. "The clause is the only voice I need." It was a 1-page message. No preamble. No threats. "I am exercising my right under Section 14C. The enclosed check reflects the agreed-upon amount. Signed. Final. By the time John opened his inbox, the package was already in the building. They didn't panic at first. I wasn't there, but I know how it went. John probably skimmed the cover line, scoffed. She's trying to rattle us, he said, feet on his desk, dopamine still high from yesterday's win. Mary laughed, tight and fake, called it founder drama. They let the envelope sit unopened for a day. Maybe two. Until Lori, general counsel, called them into the glass room. Her voice doesn't rise. She doesn't waste verbs. You need to read the clause, she said. John probably chuckled. It's ancient. It can't possibly hold. It holds, Lori replied. No expiration. And more importantly. She dropped the silence like a trapdoor. Her team never finalized the merger. The original entity still exists. In Delaware. She owns the controlling share. The room went quiet. She doesn't want control, John probably muttered. She wants revenge. A headline. No, Lori said. She wants her company. And you gave it to her. When you fired her, without cause. By Wednesday, the buzz had started. Michael had timed it perfectly, 72 hours of legal silence, then a handful of precise, off-the-record messages. Just a heads up. Just a whisper. Former clients began reaching out. Isaac from Medscope. You back? Because if you are, we're coming with. Kayla, one of the originals. We only stayed because you were still inside the building. Even Jennifer texted. Just say the word. I've got the fire. You've got the match. Inside the company, chaos bloomed. The clause had teeth. The check had cleared. The board was being briefed in real time. Mary Rage posted on LinkedIn, in tech, egos destroy more than they build. Rich, coming from someone who once said the word algorithm was too aggressive for brand alignment. By Friday, John looked hollow. Not fired. Not yet. Just hunted. I didn't gloat. I didn't even watch. I just sat in my home office, sipping tea as the architecture they'd used to exile me began crumbling beneath their feet. They thought they were erasing a founder. But what they'd done was sign over my company with a paper trail and a timestamp. For exactly $1. They thought they'd buried me. They forgot I left with the deed. They called it an emergency board meeting. Saturday. 9 a.m. No coffee. No pastries. No fake warmth. Just a cold projector beam casting the crime scene across the wall, my original contract. Clause 14C, highlighted in blood red. John stood at the head of the table, collar askew, hair pretending it had seen a comb. He cleared his throat like that would save him. Used phrases like administrative misinterpretation and legacy clause ambiguity. But his voice cracked before slide 2. By slide 3, the back of his neck was sweating through Egyptian cotton. A venture partner, old money, older eyes, leaned forward. She mailed a check? John nodded. And you, accepted it? We didn't, look, no one realized. You didn't read, the man said. Jesus Christ. You didn't even read. Mary tried to pivot, spoke about brand tone and narrative resilience. She used the word trust 5 times. Stop, another board member snapped. She just reclaimed your platform, your user base, and your infrastructure, using a clause you ignored. You didn't lose the company. You gave it away. Outside that glass tomb, the real damage began. Medscope hit pause. A biotech firm in Boston made it public. We're reviewing all vendor partnerships tied to original IP architects. Then Kayla dropped the match. A single tweet. We didn't invest in their logo. We invested in her. It detonated. 70,000 likes by midnight. 4 trade publications used the word coup. A journalist coined the term. The clause heard round the valley. And me? I was already gone. Not hiding. Not gloating. Moving. Michael and I toured a workspace down the street. 5th floor. Glass perimeter. No legacy ghosts. No pastel slogans. We didn't need space for an empire. We needed a cockpit. Fiber internet. 2 rooms with doors that shut. A coffee machine that spoke fluent vengeance. While John stammered through a post-mortem Zoom, we signed the lease. The ink was dry before Monday. That morning, I passed by the old office. Hoodie. Sunglasses. No theater. The new receptionist blinked. Press tour? I smiled. No. I'm next door. And I was. 1 floor up. Better light. Cleaner air. By 10 a.m., my inbox was blinking. Not spam. Not noise. Defectors. Richard's resume came first. Attached was a PDF titled Receipts_compiled_by_fire.pdf. I've been archiving everything. Let's rebuild. By week 2, it was muscle memory. Jennifer, the NLP team's in. They've been waiting for the signal. William, tell me where the whiteboard is. I'm bringing dry erase markers and trauma. Lucas from accounting, sniper with spreadsheets, sent me a fresh PNL under the subject line. John never scared me. We didn't hold interviews. We held formation. 12 people in folding chairs. No titles. No ceremony. Richard brought black coffee and a burn book. Michael laid out the legal scaffolding. I unwrapped the clause. Framed. Hung it in silence. It looked good above the router. Then the press found me. Fastline Weekly slid into my messages like a whisper. Is it true? Define it. You bought back the company for $1? No. I collected what was already mine. F. Jamist page. Full feature. The clause queen, how a signature sank a startup. They ran a photo of me from the early days, hair tied back, hoodie stained with ramen broth, eyes lit up like fire alarms. I looked exhausted. I looked dangerous. Mary tried to save face. Posted some philosophical trash on LinkedIn titled "The High Road is Still the Hardest Path." Stock image of a mountain trail. Quote from Maya Angelou. Comments turned against her by lunch. She limited them by dinner. John tried strategy. Layoffs. Podcasts. Brand workshops. He gave an interview where he used the word resilience 8 times. No one listened. The clients had already begun redirecting invoices. The trust was gone. The talent had followed it out the door. And me? I wasn't watching them fall. I was building something better. Something faster. With teeth. Next door, the empire was burning. In my office, the lights were on. The code was compiling. And the old team was home again. We didn't need a launch party. We had a clause. And a countdown. It didn't fall apart with a scream. It folded in on itself, quiet, corporate, bloodless. The stock slipped through the floor like a ghost leaving the body. No alarms. Just dead weight. The board didn't convene. They dissolved. 2 stepped down the Richard morning. Another resigned via lawyer. 1 tried to negotiate a quiet exit and was left on read. John sent a memo no one finished reading. His opening line. I've always been committed to innovation, even in misunderstood forms. The translation wasn't subtle. I got outmaneuvered by someone I thought didn't matter. And me? I wasn't watching. I was busy erasing their fingerprints. Richard Company. Different system. Different soul. We kept the name. Changed the spine. The new logo, a bird made of wireframe and ash. Sharp lines. Wingtips made of fire. No dollar symbol. No flames. Just implication. The tagline was quieter this time. We never left. You just stopped listening. 3 former clients returned within 6 days. They didn't ask for demos. They wired funds. You were always the product, one told me. Everything else was noise. By month's end, we weren't just operational. We were untouchable. No press tour. No relaunch party. No TED Talk energy. Just code. Contracts. Motion. The sound of real work returning. Once, walking past the old office, I looked up. 5th floor. Dark. The lights that had once stayed on until 2 a.m. were gone. Even ghosts get bored eventually. Inside, the blinds were still closed. Probably no one left to raise them. That's the thing about arrogance. It burns fast and dies faster. But memory? Memory holds a grudge. The keynote came by accident. I was slotted for a background panel. Post-type ethics. Something toothless. Then the headliner disappeared, ayahuasca, Bali, creative rebirth. Something forgettable. They called me at 10 p.m. We need someone with heat, the chair said. And your name keeps coming up. I opened with silence. No preamble. No thank yous. Just black screen. One line. The cost of being forgotten. Then I stepped into the light. No blazer. No stage smile. Just me, the long game in human form. I didn't tell them how I won. I told them how I survived. I told them about the silence of being erased in real time. The microwave. The noise of wires at 2 a.m. The exact moment I realized I could lose everything if I didn't write my name into the contract. I told them about the check. Not the joke of it. The shape of it. How it felt in my hand. What it meant to hold power, not speak it. They didn't cheer. They held still. The room locked into silence, like it didn't want to break the story. Then I pulled it out. Framed. Matte black. Nothing fancy. Inside it, a check. Dated. Signed. $1. The kind of artifact that doesn't rust, it corrodes people. I held it up. Slow. Careful. The way you'd hold a loaded weapon. In my pocket, the phone buzzed. One vibration. Michael's name. Final board resignation. Clean exit. I looked at the screen. Then back at the crowd. Not a grin. Not yet. Just a stillness that said. I kept the receipts. I outlived the empire. And then, finally. Always read the contract. And if you think she forgot to write herself into the ending, you weren't paying attention. I left the stage to silence. And then, applause. Not wild. Not theatrical. Earned.